Well, hello, DCO Nation, and welcome back to another DCO Live. Guys, we got several on. Steve is on, Small Craft Angler, Gunner, great to see you guys. Russell just jumped on, awesome. Glad you guys could make it tonight. Well, we have, I'm actually really excited to have Captain Chris Regan on tonight. I have been on his boat a couple of different times. And a matter of fact, I want to share a couple of pictures with one of the times I was on there. But Chris, I really appreciate you coming on. I know your time is valuable, but appreciate you coming on and letting us abuse you with a bunch of questions and stuff tonight.
No, happy to be here.
Good. So, guys, Captain Chris is with Carolina Hook and Fly, and you can book a charter. There's his Instagram that just popped up there, and here is how you can book him for a charter. Now, Chris, you're running 2 or 3 boats.
Yeah, we've got 3 boats, and then I run a 4th. So I still run Fly Girl, and then I kind of go back and forth. I've got the flats boat that I run that as well. So the bay boats, I've got Jimmy and Caleb that pretty much take care of those unless they need a day off or something happens. But yeah, Fly Girl and the flats boat. The flats boat is Flyby, and those are the 2 main ones that I run and have a good time on.
Yeah, absolutely. And excuse me, for those of you guys who are watching online, so this picture right here was about 4 years ago. That's my wife, Lefty. She's reeling in a fish, and Chris is about ready to net that right there. And then she ended up with about a 20-inch trout, which we ended up releasing. But yeah, that was an awesome day out on the water. I tell you what, guys, if you want to have a great time out on the water, book this guy. He knows what he's doing. He will get you on the fish without a doubt. So
we're gonna have fun no matter what.
Yeah, without a doubt. I remember one of the first times we were on the boat, we were cruising out. We had just backed out of the slip, and you kind of turned to us and you're like, okay, what kind of music you want? And we're like, oh man, let's do a little country. And man, you cranked it up and we made a run and we were off and running. So it was great.
That's part of the fun of it. Yep. Loud music on the run, then get serious when we're fishing.
Yeah. It was a great day too. Great day. So guys, this is your show. Get your questions in. Let's keep Chris busy. But the first thing that I want to start off with is April. So there's a lot of changing going on out there right now out on the water. One of the biggest changes that I've seen the last few times I've been out is all of the bait that I've been seeing. So what is your mentality and how does your tactics change going from winter with really no bait moving around to all of a sudden it's a buffet?
Yeah, no, there's and I'm sure you see it as much as I do, especially pulling around. There's bait there all year. Those mullet, there's plenty of them that are residents, whether they're big jumping cob mullet or small finger mullet. But a lot of it now, we're in that transitional time where before we were honed in on using live bait, live shrimp or artificials. So now the live shrimp is kind of petering out a little bit because the pinfish are moving in. We're starting to see some peanut pogies popping up. But yeah, I mean, it's the inlet is alive, and now that water's warming up. There's a lot of flounder in the creek already. There's still good big trout are still in there. The redfish, the black drum, the sheep's head, they're all here. So it's a great transitional time where when you're trying to go out there and get an inshore slam or a grand slam, this is a great opportunity to do it. So the water's warming up. The top water bite's going to be firing off. So that's one thing that I absolutely love doing. I just want to see them swipe at it and miss it. If anything, I don't even care if they angle it, but I just want to see that big top water boil or see them roll on it or even just miss it. So it's
Have you thrown any top water lately?
I have not. The last couple times that I went out, the wind was so bad. I couldn't even do it. I was having a hard enough time. Of course, there were fly fishing trips that I was going out on, and I ended up just doing a light spin. We were throwing artificials and floating corks with live shrimp under them.
Yeah. What is your go-to topwater bait?
I mean, I like the old Zero Spooks. There's one that Florida Fishing Products came out with, and I really like that one. It's based off of it, but it has a little different. It's keel weighted, so it walks a little different. So you can almost get like that Rapala, like that skitter walk action with a spook combined together, and that's one of my favorite ones to throw.
Okay. Okay. Are you throwing a popper with your fly gear? Do you do any poppers?
I do. We'll do topwater gurglers.
Okay.
We'll throw a bunch of those. I don't do a whole lot with the poppers, but there's plenty of times where I've done it on light spin. You'd be amazed at how much the bass tactics and things like that will convert over to salt water. Obviously I'll change out hooks and stuff like that, but I mean, anything that's going to make a noise and throw water and do all that stuff, I believe it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. I love topwater. I am not the best at it. One of the better guys that I know is Steven Trainer. Man,
Yeah.
he'll throw a topwater like for a whole tournament all day long and just, wipe the floor with us. So
I have been in Murrells Inlet and I'm fly fishing and cannot get a fish to eat. And there's two kayaks. We're just picking different areas, and they threw topwater all day. And I was counting how many fish they were catching, where I was just getting fly refusal after fly refusal. So it's that misconception, everybody thinks early morning, sunset, overcast days. I mean, you can literally, if those fish are fired up, you can do it all day long.
yeah, absolutely. And I love it. Like I said, I'm just not very good at it. Bob just asked a question, popped it up there on the screen. It says, what are your top 3 flies in April?
A lot of the ones that I'm throwing, I mean, I pretty much stick with shrimp patterns. I'll do a little bit of like a shrimp crab imitation, just a little bit fatter in the body. But anything shrimp imitation, that has been my go-to, and it's been redfish, it's been flounder. I've been catching on them. All of it. Natural patterns. I've been doing some with a darker brown with a little bit of chartreuse in it. I've been having great success with those. But the shrimp, I mean, you can always throw a clouser. If I'm doing a topwater, it's going to be a gurgler, especially even if it's a flood tide and the grass is really thick. If it's falling and it's kind of at that point in time where I need to get out, I'll throw a gurgler on there.
Okay. All right. Great question, Bob. I appreciate you throwing that up there. Okay. So, wait a minute. Joe we're getting inundated now. The guys are into it. Here we go. So it says, a day after a storm, does the fishing slow down?
I don't think it does. There's certain fish and you get that little freshwater inundation. I think it's more area because, that tide's going to change. Your salinity levels are going to be a little off. But that's usually when I'll target like deeper bodies of water. So that salinity level is only going to be on the surface. It's not going to go all the way down to the bottom. And I mean, every 6.5 hours, we're getting a tide change. So you're constantly getting that salt water pushed in and out. So it doesn't last that long. When it's raining, I've had a hard time, trying to get a good bite going then. But usually a little bit afterwards, I'm okay with it.
Is it harder pre-front or post-front?
I think pre-front is when those fish get fired up. They can sense that atmospheric change, and they don't know how long that storm is going to last. So they're just constantly they're eating, they're gorging themselves.
Okay. Yeah. I've kind of seen the same thing. Especially last year, I remember a lot of pre-front fishing times where it was just on.
Oh,
and then a day or two after, it's kind of slacked off for me. And then maybe that 3rd or 4th day after that big storm, it seems like they, I don't know, adapt or readjust, and it's right back on again.
Yeah. And that's where I think that salinity level comes into play. You're getting all that stuff. And once it gets back to, the normal level where it should be, those fish are right back at home and they're happy, and it's just another day for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate the question. Okay, so kind of jumping back into these April tactics, where are you finding fish right now in this transition time? Not GPS locations or anything like that, but are they more creek mouths? Are they starting to pull up, or are they pushing back into the flats, or where are you kind of finding them?
No, a lot of it. I have found some of my better bites have been Not you find a deep hole or just deeper water, and they're not in the hole. They're kind of sitting on the sand, just on the outside, waiting on that bait, kind of getting flushed in. So we're catching them in 3 foot of water. It's all sand, and they're just kind of sitting there staging. They're holding up because that water, it's in a good warming trend right now, but it's still a little cool for them. But they're sitting in the sun. They're just trying to stay warm.
So they're sitting right on the edge of a hole. Is that what you're
Right.
saying? They're not down at the bottom, but they're just
They're right on the edge. Yep.
right on the edge of the hole. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
So
Great. Are you seeing anything pushed up onto the flats yet?
Yeah, there's actually been a bunch. There's been a couple good schools, and even along oyster bars. I haven't. It's been a minute, and I've heard reports that there was one really big school that was hanging out of 100+ fish, but it was hard to get them to eat. They were moving so fast, and they were very skittish. But there's still, that 8 to 12 fish. There's still a bunch of those going around, especially as clear as the water still is. You can see them, and I mean I guess that's the advantage that I have as far as being able to stand up on the poling platform, and whether or not I'm using the pole or a trolling motor, you can still see them, and I mean they're happy and they're just cruising. And this was one of the first years, within the last month and a half, you're seeing a lot of the big schools of mullet. There's redfish mixed in there with them, and then some of the smaller schools, like you'd only have like 1 or 2 redfish, but there'd be a big trout sitting there right with them.
Oh, really?
It was like the cat and dog relationship. They were just happy, and they were just kind of sitting there, just slowly, just cruising along a bank. And I've seen it multiple times.
Now, are the redfish and the trout, when they're cruising together, are they about the same size? I wouldn't think one would be smaller than the other. I would think they'd have.
Yeah, they're the same size, and I mean, you really got to look at it. You can see that dark back of a trout, and you can pick out a lot of the spots.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was pretty interesting to see it. And the redfish that are mixed in with the mullet, I mean, they are silver and white. Their colors have just completely changed.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I've been trying to sift through some of the questions here too as Captain Chris is talking. So Everett, he was on tonight. Nice to see you, buddy. What should I target the next 2 weeks?
I think we're getting ready. I think the full moon is this weekend. I think a lot of those big flounder are going to be pushing in. The big females are going to be coming in because that water temp's getting right. And it's either going to be this full moon or the next one. And there's been some 5-6 pound flounder caught in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think the big ones are this full moon is going to be when they push in.
Yeah. Yeah. When I had Captain Jason on, well, what was that now? 2 weeks ago? I had caught a 21.5-inch flounder right at the end of March. And I told him when I hooked into it, excuse me, I thought I had a ray.
Yeah.
Because it was staying down and it was still so early. I was like, oh man, I've got a ray, great. And ended up pulling up a 21. And that was a great surprise.
Absolutely. Like I said, there's some in there, there's a lot of them that are right at that 16-inch mark. There's a ton of small ones, but I think this full moon, I think it's going to really fire the bite up, and a lot of those big females, because as you know, end of this month is the flounder tournaments are starting to pick up. So
yeah, yep, absolutely.
Should be getting good.
Yeah, man, I hope so. So Russell just jumped on, said, when those fish are on those edges, do you cast past and reel into the deeper side, or reel from the deeper area up towards the shallow?
So typically a lot of the stuff that I'll do, I'll power pull on the grass line. If I know where the hole is, I'm casting past it and just kind of working it all the way back to the boat. And I'm going to work the bottom, because you never know what's going to be at the bottom of that hole. But that's when I try not to do a whole lot with the trolling motor, unless I'm in, deep water. If I'm out fishing by the jetties or in a deep channel or in the middle of the channel, that's really the only time that I use the trolling motor. I try and power pull everywhere. So I'm always from the grass line casting past, and I'm just casting all over the place, doing different retrieves and coming all the way back to the boat.
Yeah. So you're passing it back. And so you're basically working it down, then the bottom, and then kind of back up the other side then.
That's right. That's
You're
right.
working the whole deep area, I guess it would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's, I'm starting from one side and just fan casting all the way back and forth.
Okay. All right.
There's a
Awesome.
lot of them, like, I feel the more that you cast, you're going to drag it past them. And they may not hit it the first time or the second time, but that third time, that bait comes past them, they're going to explode onto it and grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a, guys, that's a great tip. Don't give up on a spot too quickly, especially if you think that there's fish in that area on a hole, on an oyster bars, or whatever. Don't give up on those spots too quick. And of course, one of the questions we usually get is, how long do you stay in an area before you end up taking off and giving up on that hole?
I try, you're sitting there fighting yourself not to leave, because patience is a virtue. So I'm sitting there, and if I don't get a bite in the first 5 minutes, like, I want to run to the other end of the creek, or other end of the inlet. But I typically try and do at least like 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes per spot. Historically, in time on the water, you're going to know where those fish are supposed to be. Now, whether or not they want to eat, that's a whole different ball game. But historically, you can pick those spots just having time on the water, where I know at some point there's going to be a big fish right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've screwed myself numerous times where I get to that area too early. I try and keep logs or notes, and you start getting those good bites. I try and look and see what the tide is. So I know at a 3.2, I need to be here, because that's when those fish are typically going to start eating.
Yeah. Again, guys, there's something about, especially, I know a lot of you guys who are out on the water, you guys are taking pictures of those fish. Make sure you timestamp those pictures, because that's a log. And, with my videos, that's one of the things that I can do. I can go back 2, 3, 4 years and be like, hey, I was catching fish over here at this time and the tide was doing this. So yeah, logging information, the more information you can get, the better off you are.
Every year I have to upgrade the storage on my phone, because I have pictures from 8 years ago, and I go back, it's the same thing. There's a timestamp, there's a date stamp, there's all that stuff. And typically every morning, that's what you do, is you go back a couple of years and you look and say, oh, well, it was here. The only thing that's not in there, if I could put, which I probably can, is put, water temps, what the weather was like, all that stuff.
Right.
But
Exactly.
That's how a lot of us, we go off of our pictures that we have stored. And that's how we pick spot number one, where we're starting.
Right. Now, a spot number one, usually your A spot, because I've heard some charter guys at the end of the day, they're running around, and some of the customers are like, okay, so are we going to the A spot now? And it's like, no, we were there first.
It's the hard part, and our inlet is getting so busy. There's no, you can try and go to one spot, and there's already a boat sitting there, or there's 4 boats sitting there. So it's like, you got to have that ABC as spot number one.
Right.
But it's interesting, because even on charters now, it's like, every trip I take, I try and stop at 1 to 2 spots that I've never fished before, to just do like an exploratory one.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing that I have been trying to incorporate the last year or two, of just being able to do that, is learning new spots and seeing you may not be in the right spot, but if you're 30 feet down or 100 feet down, are those fish transitioning there? Are they working through where you wanted to be to get there? And a lot of times they are.
Yeah. And again, that kind of goes back to, don't give up on those spots too quickly, work an entire area. Yeah.
There's plenty. I mean, as soon as you start catching this fish, they're not going to sit there the entire time. They're going to continuously move. I mean, they have tails. They're not just burying themselves to the ground. So you can go, and the greatest piece of advice is, wherever you were sitting, your next spot, if you can cast to where you were sitting, chances are those fish have been following your bait all the way to the boat, and there's going to be, a couple fish sitting right underneath where you were sitting.
Yeah. So I just want to shift gears just a little bit. So one of the things that Captain Chris offers is a fly fishing trip. So I want to talk a little bit of fly fishing, because again, I keep saying it, I want to jump into it this year, and I'm going to. So can you go over maybe just some basics, your setup, what you're usually throwing, your line, leader material, length of leader, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of give us a little taste of what you would offer with a fly trip?
Yeah. So basically, every fly trip that I go on, there's typically 4 fly rods that I take. And then I have a spare reel as well. Most of it, an 8 weight is what's typically the most common to throw. That can handle anything from your flounder, trout, redfish. I've caught black thumb and sheepshead on flies. So, and you'll see them back there. But an 8 weight floating line, most of my tippet, I throw, you can buy the pre-made like 9-foot leaders. Typically, I'll start with one of those, and then I just add tippet onto it. The most common in the wintertime, I bump down. I'm throwing like a 12-pound tippet. Typically in the summer, it's a 16 to 20-pound. So, and it all depends on what type of, what class of fish I'm looking for. Anything, like I say, I like shrimp imitations. Everything eats a shrimp. So that's one of my favorite ones to throw. I'll do the gurglers every now and then. A clouser, I mean, you can't beat a clouser. That's the one fly that you could take anywhere in the world and you're going to catch a fish on it. Yeah. But those are the main ones. Wintertime, we'll do some dock fishing on the fly, and with those, I do a sinking line. Or if it's a slick ocean and I want to go out there and chase bluefish and Spanish mackerel, same thing. A sinking line is what I throw, but I still throw it on an 8-weight. So that's a reel that I just kind of keep in my bag. I don't pull it out a whole lot unless I'm doing one of those specific trips. If it's a little bit windier, typically I'll go up to a 9-weight. But if it's flat calm, a 7-weight is a great option because it gives you a little bit of leeway, a little bit further cast. You can carry that fly line, and it's easier for the client to do, especially if they're used to, rainbow trout fishing or anything like that, where they're throwing a 3 to 5 weight.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, we were talking a little bit before we jumped on, and, I was saying that I pulled out my 5-weight that I had out in Colorado, and I was out in the street, doing that. So yeah, man, an 8-weight to a 5-weight, man, that's a big jump for us little stream guys.
It's a huge difference. And then you want to go chase a bull red or a tarpon or a cobia, and you're up to a 12-weight. And it's like throwing a pool cue,
Whoa, now wait a minute. I was thinking maybe starting out with some pinfish or something. So
they're fun. Honestly, you'd be surprised, especially at the lower tides, of how many flounder you can catch just blind casting.
Oh man, yeah. Oh, I'd love to catch one on a fly.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, it's action. It's you're catching them on the fly rod, and they're gonna eat it. So
yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little tournament fishing. So how long have you guys been doing that? So it's a team fishing competition, and you and Captain Jason Burton, you guys are teammates, right? Yeah. So tell us the series that you're fishing with and kind of how you guys got into it.
So, it's hard because we've been doing it steady the last 2 years. And tournament fishing is so hard because Jason and I, we both, we've tournament fished for so long, between king mackerel tournaments, marlin tournaments, wahoo tournaments, all that stuff. And the hardest part is trying to find someone that you can spend all day with, if not, 4 days with. So Jason and I, we're very like-minded. We both love to fish. We love to release fish. And we can spend the whole day together, and, we can sit there and BS and shoot anything and just talking, and pre-fishing, and we don't really get tired of each other. We're both laid back, easy going. So that's one of the biggest things, is trying to find someone that you can spend that amount of time with. But the series that we fished, we do the South Carolina Redfish Cup, which historically it's been a 3-tournament series. This year they've gone to 5. So they just released it today. There's actually 2 tournaments in North Carolina. And then we just did this last one, which Power Pole puts it on, and it's a Go Live tournament that is the entire East Coast. So you're not only fishing against, people in South Carolina, you're fishing against Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, all that stuff. And that one's a little different. That's the first one that we've done, but it was actually exciting because you have a 7 to 2 window, and that's your fishing hours. The hardest part is, which we had a hard time because we lost fish doing it, is you have to go Facebook Live. So you have to show fighting the fish, getting the fish in the boat, in the bag, zeroing the scale out, putting the bag on the scale, and then releasing the fish. And that all has to be on the live, team name, number, all that good stuff. So there's a lot going on, but it was fun. It was enjoyable. So the other ones, you got to be back to the scale at 3:00, and if you're there at 3:01, you're disqualified. So
yeah,
that's the hard part. So it's we still run our flats boats. We're going against guys that are in 25-foot boats with 450s on them that are doing 90 miles an hour each way. So they can get there in half the time that we do. So it's one of the downsides to it, but we can get shallower than they can when we have to.
Right.
But
and without those weigh-ins, you don't have to worry about that run time. So
yeah, that's the nice thing. You can sit there and you can fish all the way up till the buzzer.
Right.
You're not trying to put in, all right, there's going to be traffic here. I got 4 no wake zones I got to go through, and a 30-mile run.
Right.
But the tournaments are fun. We use it to it's fun to compete against other guys that are like-minded, but you're also putting the skills that you do, and you take clients out, you're putting your skills to the test against some of the best people, whether it's locally within the state or, like that one, the entire East Coast. You're putting your skills up against them. So it just helps you.
So how do you prepare for these tournaments? You guys get together, you're like, hey, we want to fish this area because it's these tides, so how do you actually prepare?
Typically, we always pre-fish the day before. And a lot of it, you can go out and it's just trying to find that class of fish. But typically we'll try and do 2 days of pre-fishing before the tournament. And then a week before, we try and go down there and just kind of do a scouting, like, all right, we want to see this area. And we try and align the tides up. So if we know that, this day, 11 o'clock is dead low tide. So we're going to have the tail end of the fall and the first part of the incoming. So we try and cater our pre-fishing days to what that tide is going to be. And there's times where it's going to be, a month out that we have to do it. But at least we're going down there just trying to, if it's an area that we haven't fished, like we were in Port Royal last year. So we tried to go down there before, and at best case, we were just trying to lay tracks of knowing where to go. So, because that's the whole other part with going to a complete different area. But I mean, it could be a month-long thing where the two of us, we're staying up till midnight, texting each other, doing screenshots on Google Earth, trying to say, hey, we should check this area out, or just trying to figure things out. And, it was the same way when I was doing offshore tournaments a lot. You're only as good as your network of guides that all across the East Coast. They really come in handy. So you're trying to pull favors, or not trying to get secret spots, but hey, I need 2 fish that are 22 and 3/4 that weigh 9 pounds. I need 2 of those. I don't want to cherry pick your spot. We just need 2 of those fish. So if we can go in there and catch 2 and leave, like, we're very happy and very grateful. There's a lot of bourbon that gets sent out, or bottles of vodka, to pay for favors and tips, stuff like that.
Absolutely. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Do you find that guys are pretty receptive to that, though? You
got to be good. You got to be good friends with them. You can't just call up a local guide and be like, I need your.
Hey man, yeah, I need a spot.
Yeah, but there's a lot of it. It's a big family. It's a big network. So you may not know the guy personally, but you may know his brother, or another guy that is great friends with him that takes his family down there, and their families do barbecues. Where, hey, I have some great friends coming in. Where do you think they should go, or what area should they go to scout and try and find the fish?
Yeah, so it almost sounds like, you guys are preparing almost like us weekend warriors are. So if I'm going down to Charleston, I'm pulling up Google Earth, a week or so before the trip and trying to figure out, those areas and whatnot. And hey, there's a creek, it's going to be dumping out. There's a dock over here. There's an oyster. So it almost sounds like it's the exact same thing.
It is. Yeah. You're trying to do as much pre-planning as you can. 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. So you're just trying to find that spot that's going to be most consistent. And like I say, we do a lot of fun trips. We just got back 3 weeks ago. We were down in McClellanville for a guys weekend. we rent a house down there and spend 4 days. So we try and, hey, I don't want to fish here because I did it last year and I know what kind of fish are there. Same thing. Let's go try and find another spot and just do some exploring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, we are at the 30-minute mark. I want to be respectful of Captain Chris's time here, but before we take off, let's talk about the weekend. So if you're going out, the weekend doesn't actually look too bad. Looks like there's going to be high tide fairly early in the morning and then low tide 3-ish, 2-ish, something like that. So early afternoon. So give us like your fishing report for the weekend. How, if you were going out, what would you be doing?
I'll actually be out there. I'll be out there Saturday morning. I'm actually supposed to have a fly fishing trip, and the winds, I know they're calling this last week, last 2 weeks, whatever you want to call it. It has just been absolutely insane, this wind, and I don't know if this is just our norm for now. Like we're going to have 15 to 20 every day, but Saturday. It looks like 8:33. That's what I have for high tide, and it's only at 4. So we get into the afternoon, and it gets a little bit better. But low tide is right around 3:15. So, you get out there early. It's the tail end of that rising tide. So I know where I'll be. I'll be in the flat. I'll be pulling around, doing that as long as I can get a fly rod and a decent cast. So I'll be up in there. But like I say, that should be, I don't remember the exact day, but that should be right around the full moon. So like I said, I think those big flounder are going to be pushing in here. There's still a lot of trout. And there's still a lot of big trout. It's amazing to see how many, 27, 28-inch trout are still being caught. And there's still a lot of, just fat 20-inchers that are there. So to be able to get on those. But yeah, early morning on that rising tide, I'd be fishing grass lines, throwing top water, and then kind of transition. I think you'll have a little bit of a lull right at that 8:30 mark, somewhere in there. So it's a good time to, if you're not in the right spot, go and change it and move and, fish that fall out.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I usually have success on those slack tide times catching flounder. It seems like flounder are usually so aggressive. They'll eat anytime, anywhere. So usually that's when I'll switch away from, maybe hunting redfish and be like, hey, it's slack tide. I'm going to go see if I can pick up a flounder. So do you find that also, that flounder will basically?
Yeah, a lot of times, like I say, a lot of the slack tides, I'm going to start moving. I try and fish, moving water a lot, but our slack tides aren't lasting that long anymore just because of the wind. And the tide charts have been off. I've been seeing that there's the extreme low tides that we've been having this early season have just been absolutely insane. I've seen bars and oyster bars and everything shifted over the winter time. And that's one of the biggest things that we're finding is just watching not to get stuck.
Yeah.
Especially if we're in the bigger bay boats and stuff like that, getting out of Oaks. Oh my God. I mean, you've got a narrow channel at low tide, and you're either as fast as you can, throttle to the glass, or, just creeping along. But no, I think this weekend is going to be some good fishing. I think same thing. You want to get that inshore slam. It's going to be the time.
Yeah. There were one more question that popped up here late. Bob, he said, how is the north end of Pawleys Island at the outlet, or right there at the north inlet? He said, I'm a land-based fisherman. So I'll throw it to you first, Captain Chris. Do you fish up there very much? I know I've fished it quite a bit.
I have a lot of friends that fish there, and they do very well. I know at the mouth of it, it is pretty much almost closed off for boat traffic getting in and out of there. I've never actually put my flats boat in there. It's one of the things that I want to do this year is to go and just pull around. I fish North Inlet a lot and do very well down there, all the way up into Debedew. So there's a lot of fish there. But Pawleys, I know I have a lot of friends that go there, and a lot of them are land-based or kayak fishing. And there's some slob flounder back in there. I know that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that north end where those rocks are, I'm not really going to call it the jetty, but that rock face right there. One thing that I see are guys making a bomb cast away from those rocks. Really what you want to do is stay as close as you can to those rocks, because that's the structure where these fish are holding. So if you're not getting snagged up in those rocks, you're fishing too far away from them.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to just kind of flip it right out there, maybe 10, 15 feet, and work it up those rocks. There are sheep's head there. There are flounder, trout. It's a great fishery there at that north end.
I have a lot of friends. They fish the the rock formations for beach erosion, and they're beach fishing. They take their kids down there, and it's amazing how many redfish, black drum that they're just fishing right next to them with dead shrimp on a just a normal knocker rig or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the other things, I would not shy away from throwing big baits. With the way the moon phase and all that stuff is right now, the amount of bigger finger mullet and stuff like that are getting out of the grass, and just the baits around, because the pinfish are here. Like I was saying, there's peanut bunker all over the place. So I wouldn't shy away from a big bait.
So you're talking like maybe like a 5-inch Z-Man. Would you go up to like a 7?
I mean, big fish are gonna eat big baits. Depending on what you're going for.
That's what they tell me. So.
I know I was throwing this past weekend. I was throwing 4 and 5-inch baits, Z-Mans, the Baller Z's and stuff like that. I've been having a lot of good success with those.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I tell you what, guys, we are at almost 37 minutes. It's a little bit longer than we usually go to, but the conversation has been fantastic. Guys, I really appreciate you jumping on. Captain Chris, thank you so much for, give us a little bit of your time. Again, I know that it's valuable and you're busy, but to jump on here and, I'd love to have you back on, like in 3 or 4 months, kind of with the changing of the season this summer, kind of pick your brain again with some summer fishing. But
absolutely. And anybody that's on there, feel free to reach out. Get a fishing report of what you think, what we're catching. So we all share information down at the dock. I won't give you the spot, but I'll tell you what we're catching, what we're throwing, what tides and all that good stuff. So
yeah. Well, we're not pot lickers, so we'd rather learn about fishing and then go figure out the spots ourselves.
Yeah,
at least that's how I look at it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Stick around. Don't hang up. I'll talk to you here for a couple minutes after we end the podcast. But guys, I appreciate you, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And like I say, almost every weekend, conservation starts with you. Release a fish for someone else to enjoy. So guys, I will see you next week.